Now that we're finished talking about general opening ideas and quick checkmates, in this video, we'll be doing a high-level overview of the many popular openings in chess and describing some strategies for deciding what to play. This video is for after you're confident with the opening principles and want to learn something more. Although there are 20 possible moves for white on move 1, 4 of them are by far the most common. These 4 moves are e4, d4, c4, and knight to f3. e4 is the most popular move among beginners because it helps white develop his bishop on f1, getting him closer to castling kingside. d4 is another popular move. It is focused less on developing the kingside, but instead creating a solid position that's hard to break through. c4 usually ends up with control over the queen side, and knight to f3 is a flexible move that can lead to many different types of positions, making it one of the most popular moves among master-level players. Against e4, black has 4 main tries: the Sicilian with c5, the Caro-Kann with c6, the French with e6, and the open games with e5. Against d4, black can play d5 and c6, the Slav defense, d5 and e6, the Queen's Gambit declined, knight f6 and e6, usually a Nimzo Indian or a Bogo Indian, or knight to f6 and g6, which usually ends up in a King's Indian or Grunfeld. Against c4, black can play symmetrically with c5, grab the center with e5, or play quietly with knight to f6 and e6, or knight f6 and g6. You can even consider a move like c6 and d5. Against knight to f3, black can play pretty much anything that follows opening principles, except for e5, which loses a pawn. These aren't all the possible moves, but they are the most popular. And if you're short on time, you can always just focus on e4 and d4, because at the beginner level, you're unlikely to face a move like c4 and knight to f3. Those tend to get popular the higher a rating you get. As you can see, even if we're not looking at all possible moves, there are a lot of openings out there. However, don't worry, you don't need to study all of them. I doubt even the World Championship contenders do that. There are 2 ways you can approach the opening. You can learn a system, or you can learn specific lines for each side. An opening system is a set of moves you play against pretty much anything your opponent does, assuming it's safe. Some common systems for white are the London system with the moves like d4, bishop f4, e3, knight f3, c3, bishop d3, pretty much no matter what black does, and the King's Indian attack with like e4, d3, g3, bishop g2, knight f3, castles, knight bd2. For black, it's harder to do an opening system, but you can consider something like the Stonewall, creating a pawn barricade with c6, d5, e6, and f5, or the King's Indian / Pierce defense setup, like quick development with knight f6, g6, bishop g7, castles, and d6. If you decide to learn a system, the main things you want to know are when it's safe to use your system, and what you should do when it isn't. Learning an opening system can make the opening much easier, but it might also make your games look very similar to each other. This can be a good thing because you'll get experience in these positions and you'll know them better, but you might also want some variety. If you want to learn specific lines, that works too. For white, pick one of the moves out of e4, d4, c4, or knight to f3, and learn something against each of black's most common responses, which we talked about earlier in the video. For black, make sure to learn one thing against e4, one thing against d4, one thing against c4, and one thing against knight f3. If you're low on time, you can always just do e4 and d4. c4 and knight f3 are all pretty uncommon at the beginner level. Remember that whether you decide to go for an opening system or you want to learn specific lines, watching masters or strong players play the opening you chose is a great way to learn. If it's an option for you, you might want to also consider getting a book on the opening you choose, where a master or grandmaster will walk you through all the different ideas. This can speed up your process, but isn't necessary for everyone. I reached an official rating of over 1600 before getting any books dedicated to the opening. Overall, remember that uh, specific lines often require a lot more memorization than learning a system, but you will get a wider variety of positions, and they're technically tougher tries for the advantage. I hope that this overview helped you understand the opening better and gave you the information to come up with your own opening repertoire or personal set of moves. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.